A very high percentage of our learners are employed in a field that they wanted to get into.
And now I got a job at the City of Cambridge working with youth ages 6 to 12.
Went to college for 2 years for my public relations diploma and graduated with distinction, and now I'm in a full-time job.
Hi, my name's Carrie Schneider, and I'm a writer who lives here in Waterloo, Ontario. And this is my book, Girl Runner. Girl Runner is historical fiction, so that means that the character, Agatha Smart, is a character that I made up, but the things that happen in the book are based on real historical events. And I did a lot of research on women in sports, particularly running, in Canada in the last century in order to write this book. So Girl Runner is the story of a talented and celebrated Olympic athlete, Agatha Smart, who was famous in the 1920s. But it's also the story of a woman who's growing old and her accomplishments have been forgotten by history. Agatha is a woman whose ambitions and talents do not easily fit into expectations for her time period. And because this is a work of fiction, I relied on research for context and my imagination for pretty much everything else. So I tried to think about who this woman would have been, particularly as a child growing up in rural Ontario, born in 1908. What kind of characteristics would she have to be such a groundbreaking person? Girl Runner is about many things other than running, including midwifery, celebrity, friendship and rivalry, poverty, memory, and love. And it has a mystery and adventure at its core that I want to give you the pleasure of discovering for yourselves if you haven't yet read the book. So the first book that I remember reading all by myself independently was about a boy learning how to ride a tricycle. I learned to read before I started school, and I actually don't remember how that process went, but I do remember the pride that I felt on being able to read this very simple picture book, just a few words on every page, all by myself. And I think that memory maybe stayed with me even more and was made even more special because my mom inscribed in the front of the book the date on which I had first read it and my name, and that seemed like a really special moment to be marked. I remember that in kindergarten I was already reading chapter books, so I would bring my own books along to read during quiet time. And I absolutely loved going to the library as a child, and in fact I still love it, and I love taking my children to the library. Something that's kind of a key to another world, or a window into another world. But it's almost even more intimate than that, in that every book is an opportunity to see through a character's eyes, and to imagine the world through their eyes and understand it through their eyes, which is, I think, a way to gain empathy. My mom and my dad, they both read to me and my brothers and my sister before bedtime. We read all kinds of different books, children's classics. We read The Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings series. My mom read us Little House on the Prairie, and it was one of the things that I was most looking forward to about parenthood, was having the opportunity to read to my own kids. And I started to read to them when they were actually too young to even understand, but they sat and listened, and it was something that became a big part of our lives, especially when they were younger. And I would read to them before bed, and we read through all of the classics, some of them twice through, because I have 4 kids. Together was our quiet time together. And sometimes is extended out into the world of imaginary play, as we imagined ourselves being these characters. It's truly shocking to learn that about 15% of Canadian adults are at the lowest level of literacy, and that rates are even higher here in Waterloo, Wellington County, at about 24% of adults in our region. So that means that about 24% of our neighbors are unable to read and understand the most basic information, including dosages on medicine, let alone having the opportunity to read to their children and grandchildren. I don't think literacy should be a luxury. Of course, literacy is critical to participating fully in our economy, but literacy is also critical to improving quality of life, opening windows into other worlds, and as a means of bringing comfort and insight and knowledge both to ourselves and to everyone with whom we share the reading experience.
Oh, big impact.
There would be a huge gap.
We'd have a lot less people finding jobs than right now.
Well, immediately there'd be a lot of people that would probably not ever be able to get that job that they can get.
I've personally experienced not being able to find a job because I didn't have an education, and programs like this are really beneficial.
Well, myself personally, I would definitely not have been able to go. I could not afford anything.
It's very difficult to get a job when you're older, especially now if you don't have your high school diploma. And there would be nowhere for them to go to fill that gap.
This is a really, really big help for me, and I didn't even know if I didn't find it where I could have gone.
So if the funding wasn't there, I certainly wouldn't have gotten my grade 12. Not at that point anyway.
There are a lot of people for whom the school system doesn't work first time around, and those folks need help. As they have become older and realize they need that help, we can help them. And if our program was cut, there would be nothing for them.
Hi, I'm Erin Bow. I'm a poet and a novelist, and I live here in Kitchener-Waterloo. In fact, this little shed is my office. I'm the author of these 2 books of poetry, these 4 novels, and this little memoir that nobody read.
It's about me! Don't read it!
I'm delighted to have my latest book, The Scorpion Rules, be part of the Reading Rumble Literary Challenge. I understand the Reading Rumble has chosen a classic, a work of literary fiction, and a genre book, so I'm here to wave the flag for Team Genre.
Team Genre! Writing the books that people actually want to read.
I am delighted to be featured alongside my friend Carrie Schneider, whose works I really admire. Girl Runner is an excellent book. Carrie and I were once both up for the same local literary award, as if we were both street vendors who sold French fries. They had college students vote on it. She won, but only because she didn't accept my challenge to settle the matter with pistols at dawn. The Scorpion Rules are a political science fiction thriller, set, as you can see from the covers, entirely on a goat farm in post-apocalyptic Saskatchewan. It's a niche, but it's all mine. The Hound of the Baskervilles. This is actually my Encyclopedia Sherlockana, because I'm that kind of reader. But Hound brings me around to a story about the power of books. When I was a little kid, about 7, someone gave me a package of classics for young readers from Octopus Books. I really liked Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court, for example. But The Hound of the Baskervilles. I got to about page 6, where in the backstory, the Hound of the Baskervilles chases a woman across the moor, catches her, and rips out her throat. This was illustrated. I slammed that book closed, and terrified, got a chair, climbed up, hid it on the back shelf of my closet under a box of clothes I hadn't grown into yet. And I was afraid to walk by that closet for years. And that is the power of books. Hound of the Baskervilles aside, when I was a young person, I lived for books. In fact, throughout my life, over and over again, I found myself in books when I couldn't find a place for myself anywhere else. I became an author in part because there were things I needed from books that I couldn't find, and as an author, you get to change that. So, I'm delighted to be involved in this project from the Kitchener Public Library, the Literacy Group, and Project Read. Reading and libraries have been a positive force in my life. And yet this power that has saved and shaped my life, is inaccessible to 1 in 4 adults in our community. 1 in 4 people can't read well enough to read a book. And that needs to change. And I'm delighted that my book can play this small part in changing it.
Generally, the goal is the first thing we want to know, because we can do a lot of different things for people.
It takes only as long as it needs to take to get the skills the person needs to get. And the things that they're working on are just the things that they need.
A very high percentage of our learners are employed in a field that they wanted to get into.
I think the expectations were great, if not more than what it really was.
Thank you for joining the Reading Rumble and supporting literacy in our community.